Blood Moon, the last feast. The sky burned red over the ruined city as the moon loomed bloated and diseased, casting a sickly glow over the corpses littering the streets. The infection didn't just kill, it corrupted, twisted, evolved. The things that roamed the ruins were no longer human. Under the shattered remains of a gas station, Natalie crouched, gripping a blood-slick machete. Her arms trembled, her clothes torn and crusted with filth. Beside her, Gabe lay convulsing, his breath ragged. A fresh bite festered on his arm, the veins around it blackening, pulse beating against rotting flesh. He met her eyes, his pupils, already swallowing the whites, and exhaled a wet, rattling breath. "They bit you," she whispered. Gabe let out a strained chuckle, lips peeling back from bloodied teeth. "Yeah, doesn't even hurt anymore." A low, wet chewing sound echoed through the basement. Natalie stiffened. They weren't alone. She gripped the machete tighter, her fingers sticky with Gabe's blood. The emergency light flickered, casting jittery shadows against the concrete walls. Then, a sound like snapping tendons made her stomach drop. She turned just in time to see Gabe's neck jerk at an impossible angle, his mouth ripping into a silent scream. His body convulsed, then stilled. For 3 long seconds, there was nothing but the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her skull. Then he moved again, not as Gabe. His jaw cracked open unnaturally wide, veins bulging beneath his skin. The smell of rotting meat and bile filled the air as his fingernails split, lengthening into jagged claws. His eyes, void black, locked onto hers. And he lunged. Natalie swung without thinking. The machete sank deep into his neck, biting through tendon and vertebrae. Blood gushed in thick arterial sprays, coating her face, her chest, her teeth. Gabe's twitching fingers grasped at her throat, but he was already dying, again. His body slumped against her. His mouth still moved, whispering some grotesque, inhuman sound, until she ripped the blade free, nearly decapitating him. His corpse collapsed in a wet heap. The chewing sound in the corner didn't stop. Natalie froze. Something else was in the room. She turned her head slowly, a shriveled corpse hunched in the shadows, its ribcage hollowed out as it gnawed on something. Slick and red. It grinned, skin peeling from its lips, revealing too many jagged teeth. Something worm-like twisted behind its milky eyes. The thing let out a wet, gurgling snarl, then bolted toward her on all fours, too fast, too unnatural. Natalie swung wildly, missed. It hit her full force, slamming her against the wall. Claws ripped through her jacket, tearing flesh beneath. The stench of decay and raw hunger filled her nostrils as it tried to sink its fangs into her throat. Then, boom! The creature's head erupted in a shower of black gore. Natalie gasped, chest heaving. At the top of the stairs, Eli stood with a smoking shotgun, his expression cold as the grave. "We gotta move," he muttered. Then she heard it. The howls outside, a sound that sent ice crawling through her bones. The horde was coming, and the blood moon above, watching, waiting, feeding, was only just beginning its feast.
Blood Moon. The last feast. The sky burned red over the ruined city as the moon rose, swollen and sickly. For weeks, the infection had spread like wildfire, turning the streets into a carnage-soaked graveyard. The dead didn't just walk. They hunted. They were fast, ravenous, and they learned. Beneath the shattered remains of an old gas station, Natalie clutched a bloodied machete, her breath ragged. Her clothes were ripped, her body slick with sweat and gore. Beside her, Gabe gritted, his teeth pressing a filthy rag against the gaping wound in his arm. "They bit you." Her voice was a whisper, thick with exhaustion and horror. Gabe nodded, his eyes already clouding over. He knew what came next. The fever, the hunger. Then, the uncontrollable urge to rip and tear. A low growl echoed through the basement. Something was down here with them. Natalie's fingers tightened around the machete handle. The flickering emergency light cast shifting shadows along the cracked concrete walls. The sound of wet chewing filled the air. Gabe groaned in pain, his nails digging into his own flesh as the infection crawled through his veins. Nat, he croaked. She turned to him just in time to see his skin bubble and split, his veins turning, black beneath the surface. His breathing hitched, and then he lurched forward, pupils dilating into bottomless voids. Natalie swung hard, the machete buried deep in his throat, hot blood spraying across her face. He gurgled, fingers still twitching as he reached for her, gagging on his own blood before slumping to the floor. But the chewing sound continued. She turned slowly, a shriveled corpse, eyes milky white, hunched in the far corner, gnawing at something wet and glistening. It looked up. Flesh peeled from its face, revealing a row of teeth too long, too jagged. Natalie bolted, but it was fast. It screeched, lunging forward, claws extended. Then a gunshot rang out. The creature's head exploded, showering the basement with chunks of rotting brain. Eli stood at the top of the stairs, shotgun smoking, his face hard as stone. "We gotta move," he said. "They're coming." Above them, the night echoed with howls, the sound of the horde awakening, and the blood moon hung, above, watching, waiting.